Hello and welcome to Science and Sleep, where science stories become as soothing as a lullaby, yet still spark your deepest curiosity. Let your mind slow down, let the pace of the day ease, and join me on a journey that is both peaceful and full of surprises. Before we begin, I'd love to know tonight, where in the world are you listening from? If you enjoy these gentle science adventures, don't forget to follow and turn on notifications so that every night we can meet again for a new exploration. Thank you to everyone who's part of this little community because you are the reason I tell these bedtime stories about the most wondrous things ever to exist on Earth. And who knows? By the time this video ends, you might drift off to sleep with a brand new thought about the universe around you. If dinosaurs had a list of nature's boldest design experiments, the neck of Momentosaurus would surely be near the top. That neck wasn't just long, it was an evolutionary engineering marvel, as if someone had taken the blueprint of an ordinary giant lizard and stretched the neck out to the very limits of imagination. Standing among the dense forests of the Jurassic, its neck rose so high you might feel as if you were standing beneath a living crane. From a survival standpoint, this was a brilliant strategy. In a world tens of millions of years ago, where towering conifers, ginkgos, and giant ferns covered the skies, gaining access to food high above meant stepping into a buffet that most rivals could never reach. Instead of hauling its many-ton bulk through tree trunks and undergrowth, Momentosaurus only needed to swivel its neck, lightly, efficiently, and with just enough movement to gather the leaves it needed for the day. Amazingly, to achieve that length, its neck was supported by dozens of vertebrae that were hollow inside but sturdy on the outside, like a suspension bridge, with each beam reinforced by air sacs. This design not only reduced weight, but also gave the animal more neck flexibility than one might expect. Some scientists even suggest that beyond feeding, the long neck played a role in communication and display. Imagine a misty morning, sunlight piercing through a thin veil of fog, as males curve those colossal necks into graceful arcs to show strength or send a silent challenge to rivals. But greatness always comes with a cost. To pump blood from its heart all the way to its brain through such a towering neck, Momentosaurus would have needed a specialized circulatory system, a biological pump, far surpassing anything seen in modern vertebrates, even giraffes. How they solved this challenge remains a mystery, but fossil evidence and their long tenure on Earth suggest the mechanism worked remarkably well. In motion, the colossal body seemed to move in rhythm with the ground. Slow, steady steps made the Earth tremble, while the long tail swayed lightly behind to maintain balance. It's easy to picture herds of Momentosaurus migrating across sunlit plains, their necks rising like masts gliding through a prehistoric sea of grass. The sight would have been both majestic and almost surreal. Still, sheer size and height didn't make them untouchable. Predators like Alice lurked in every shadow, and a stray or injured juvenile could quickly become a target. Living in herds was not only a way to access more food through shared experience, but also a crucial layer of protection against threats. Momentosaurus stands as living proof of an evolutionary principle. Sometimes, pushing a single trait to the extreme is enough to redefine a creature's entire role in the ecosystem. In this case, the neck wasn't just a biological feature, it was a declaration of its place in the ancient world. If a long neck was a symbol of reaching upward, then elsewhere in the Cretaceous, another dinosaur chose to express itself through its head. Pachycephalosaurus, the dome-headed lizard, at first glance seemed like an ordinary bipedal herbivore. Sturdy hind legs, a long balancing tail, and a beaked snout for nipping plants. But up close, what caught everyone's attention was the rounded dome atop its skull, up to 25 centimeters thick, made entirely of solid bone. When sunlight hit it, the dome almost seemed to glow, projecting both majesty and the impression of a prehistoric warrior wearing a helmet. Surrounding the dome were small bony knobs and spikes, enhancing its armored appearance. In the popular imagination, Pachycephalosaurus is the star of dramatic head-butting battles, where two individuals crash into each other with tremendous force, much like modern bighorn sheep. Yet scientists are far from unanimous about the dome's true purpose. Beyond the combat hypothesis for competing over mates or territory, Some propose it may have served as a means of individual recognition within the herd, or as a health display through head tilting and dome thumping against trees. In fact, certain anatomical studies suggest that the neck and spine of Pachycephalosaurus might not have been able to withstand high-speed frontal impacts, hinting that their head-butting duels may have been less intense than we imagine. Whatever its purpose, the dome undeniably made Pachycephalosaurus a symbol of difference. In the same world where many species evolved horns, armor, or wings, it chose to reinforce its forehead. It's yet another example of how evolution doesn't always prioritize pure efficiency, but leaves room for daring experiments. Experiments that sometimes allow a species to thrive for millions of years. If Pachycephalosaurus leaves scientists debating over a steel helmet that is both mysterious and striking, and Therizinosaurus puzzles us with its mix of fearsome appearance and gentle herbivorous lifestyle, then the dinosaur world still has countless other main characters, each with its own strange and captivating evolutionary story. One of them is Anzu Wiley, nicknamed the Hell Chicken, a creature whose name alone might make you picture something straight out of a low-budget horror movie. Anzu lived in the late Cretaceous, around 66 million years ago, in what is now North America. It belonged to the Oviraptorosaur group, distant relatives of modern birds, but was neither small nor fragile. On the contrary, Anzu could grow over 3 meters long, weigh nearly half a ton, and move on powerful hind legs. Its toothless beak curved slightly downward, like that of a fruit-eating bird. Its wings were feathered but flightless, and most notably, it bore a tall, thin, crescent-shaped bony crest atop its head, making it look like a giant chicken wearing a crown. Interestingly, this crest appears to have had no role in defense or attack. Much like the dome of Pachycephalosaurus, many scientists believe it was a display feature, an evolutionary billboard broadcasting to its peers. I'm healthy, full of energy, and worth noticing. In life, the crest may have been vividly colored, much like modern birds use bright plumage to attract mates. Despite its somewhat over-the-top appearance, Anzu was an opportunistic omnivore. Fossil evidence and beak shape suggest it could have eaten fruit, tender leaves, insects, and even eggs or carrion when available. Its long neck and small head made it nimble when foraging among different layers of shrubs, while its long arms with curved claws were suited for digging in soil or pulling down branches, though not nearly as massive or fearsome as those of Therizinosaurus. What makes Anzu especially fascinating to paleontologists is not just its looks, but also the world it inhabited. It lived in river and swamp-rich environments where apex predators like Tyrannosaurus rex and Dakotaraptor hunted. This raises an intriguing question. How could a flamboyant hell chicken with limited defensive abilities survive among such formidable hunters? The answer may lie in speed. With long legs, Anzu could likely sprint to evade danger, while its feathers may have served as camouflage or as tools for visual display when needed. Yet, the evolutionary story of Anzu and its Oviraptorosaur kin has a deeper layer. It reminds us that natural selection doesn't only shape bodies for pure survival efficiency, but also leaves room for traits that are purely aesthetic, serving social or sexual communication. This parallels many modern birds, from the peacock's extravagant tail to the rooster's vivid comb. Place Anzu alongside Pachycephalosaurus and Therizinosaurus, and you'll notice a shared theme. All possess extreme, eye-catching features that border on illogical if judged solely by the hunt-escape-survival equation. Whether it's a bony dome, meter-long claws, or a flamboyant crest, these traits are the products of unique evolutionary pressures, where looking good can be just as important as being strong. This opens a broader view of the dinosaur world. It was not only a life-or-death struggle between muscle-bound toothy giants, but also a vast multi-million-year fashion runway where species tested every design nature would allow. A dinosaur might have had to flee from predators while also impressing a potential mate, and sometimes those two goals were in direct conflict. The existence of creatures like Anzu or Therizinosaurus also challenges how humans define beauty and practicality in nature. To us, bright feathers or oversized claws might seem like a waste of evolutionary resources, but to these animals, they were keys to passing their genes to the next generation. Perhaps that's why these creatures still captivate us tens of millions of years later. Their fossils are not just scientific evidence, they're fragments of a greater story, the story of life's boundless diversity and creativity. So the next time you see an illustration of a Pachycephalosaurus holding its dome high, a Therizinosaurus calmly stripping leaves with sword-like claws, or an Anzu proudly displaying its crest in the Cretaceous sunlight, remember, each was an unconscious designer, guided by millions of years of evolution and competition. Every strange feature is a message from the past. Life always finds many ways to succeed, and not all of them follow our logic. If Parasaurolophus used sound and beauty to communicate, then Ankylosaurus was living proof of the philosophy that sometimes the best defense is a good defense. In the flooded plains of the late Cretaceous, where Tyrannosaurus rex reigned with dagger-like teeth and a cold predator's gaze, Ankylosaurus still moved leisurely, confident in the impenetrable armor that evolution had crafted over millions of years. This armor was far more than just a few thick plates. It was arranged in rows of bony scales, osteoderms, embedded beneath the skin, each plate like a mosaic tile, interlocking perfectly while allowing enough flexibility for movement. Some of these plates rose into hard spikes, turning its back into a rugged wall that would make any predator think twice before attacking. Its head was a miniature fortress, dense skull, narrow eye openings like viewing slits, and even bony shutters protecting its eyelids. But the true icon of Ankylosaurus was its tail club. Imagine a solid mass of bone, nearly the size of a bowling ball, attached to the end of a tail built like a lever. When the powerful hip and tail muscles contracted, the force channeled into the club could be enough to break the leg bones of a full-grown theropod. This wasn't merely a defensive tool, it was a warning. In the world of Ankylosaurus, a predator had to overcome not only an impenetrable shield, but also the risk of a counterstrike that could end its hunting career forever. What's fascinating is how the body of Ankylosaurus was built to balance strength with stability. With a low center of gravity, short but sturdy legs, and broad feet, it could hold its ground even under sudden attack. When threatened, it could pivot its entire body faster than you might expect, swinging its tail like a sledgehammer in a sweeping arc. Fossil evidence from predator bones shows that sometimes this swing hit its mark, leaving lasting consequences. Despite its warrior's appearance, Ankylosaurus was a gentle creature, spending most of its time foraging. Its horned beak worked like a natural pair of shears, clipping clusters of ferns, cycads, and other low-growing plants. Small flat teeth behind the beak crushed food before swallowing, helping its digestive system extract the most from its diet. It didn't need to run fast or hide, it only needed to find lush vegetation and enjoy its meals in peace. But life for Ankylosaurus was far from entirely tranquil. Late Cretaceous North America was a stage for an evolutionary arms race between predator and prey. While Tyrannosaurus rex evolved a devastating bite force and ambush tactics, Ankylosaurus perfected armor and counterattack. Their coexistence shows that ecosystems of the time weren't simply survival of the strongest, but delicate networks of balance where each species filled a unique role. Another intriguing aspect is how the environment shaped Ankylosaurus's lifestyle. It favored river plains, dense shrub forests, and swamps. These habitats not only provided abundant food, but also gave it a controlled defensive stage. If attacked, Ankylosaurus could simply turn its back toward danger, raising its armor and tail in a silent declaration, "Come closer if you dare." Anatomical studies reveal that Ankylosaurus's tail club wasn't present from birth. Young individuals had long, flexible tails better suited for evasion than confrontation. Only upon reaching adulthood did the final vertebrae fuse and form the solid club, by which time they were large enough to face predators head-on rather than run. This reflects a clever evolutionary strategy: conserve energy until the body is ready to deliver an effective counterblow. Unlike Parasaurolophus, whose music echoed across the plains, the loudest sound Ankylosaurus might have made was the sharp thunk of its tail club meeting a target. But if you imagine that moment, the ground trembling, the predator staggering, dust swirling around the two adversaries, you understand why silence can also be a weapon. In a dangerous world, calm determination was a key to survival. Today, fossils of Ankylosaurus are found mainly in sediment layers of western North America, offering precious insights into its armor structure, club shape, and even rare fossilized soft tissue. Each specimen is a puzzle piece in understanding how this animal lived, thrived, and interacted with its world. And with every 3D reconstruction or motion simulation, people are once again astonished at the sophistication nature invested in this living, armored tank. Ankylosaurus reminds us that strength doesn't come only from attack, but from steadfast preparation against defeat. In an age of giant predators, it didn't need to be the fiercest or the fastest. It only needed to be untouchable. And in doing so, it became one of the greatest defensive warriors in the history of life on Earth. Amid the endless dunes and the brilliant blue skies of the late Cretaceous, the Gallimimus was not the only ruler of the windswept plains. Somewhere out there, hidden among the sparse riverside forests, another warrior moved in silence, relying not on speed nor on camouflage, but on a weapon that made every predator think twice: intelligence and strategy. This was the velociraptor. Contrary to the giant image often seen in movies, the real velociraptor stood only about waist high to an adult human, light in build and extremely agile. But don't be fooled by its size. This was a finely engineered hunting machine. Each foot carried a sickle-shaped claw, curved and razor-sharp like a dagger, which could fold up while running and snap forward in an instant during attack. This claw was not for slashing, but for hooking deep into flesh, holding fast like an iron grappling hook. Its eyes faced forward, granting stereoscopic vision, a huge advantage in judging distance and predicting movement. Its long, narrow snout may have enhanced its sense of smell, aiding in tracking, but its most fearsome weapon lay inside its skull, its brain. Relative to its body size, the velociraptor's brain was large for a dinosaur, especially in the areas that processed sensory input and coordinated movement. This meant the ability to plan and to react with lightning speed. Many velociraptor fossils have been found alongside the bones of Protoceratops, a medium-sized herbivore. In one famous case, predator and prey were preserved locked in combat. The velociraptor's claw still embedded in the Protoceratops' neck when both were suddenly buried by a sandstorm. That scene is a vivid reminder that even with intelligence and lethal weapons, a hunt was never without risk. What makes the velociraptor even more remarkable is the evidence that it had feathers. Not the complex feathers for flight, but downy fuzz or fan-like quills on its arms, perhaps used for insulation, attracting mates, or aiding balance while hunting. Imagine a sleek, feathered form darting through the undergrowth, golden eyes flashing in the sunset. An image far from the Hollywood depiction, yet closer to reality. Velociraptors didn't hunt large or dangerous prey alone. There is evidence they may have hunted in loose groups, coordinating to run down nimble targets like young Gallimimus or smaller herbivores. One would drive the prey, another would lie in ambush, and when the moment came, the group would tighten the net. They didn't need to be as fast as their quarry, only fast enough to force a mistake. Compared to Ankylosaurus, the armored fortress, or Gallimimus, the wind-swift runner, the velociraptor embodied a different survival strategy: clever tactics and ruthless precision. It didn't have to be the strongest or the fastest, it only needed to know when and where to strike. In a world of giants, it was often the small and adaptable that shifted the balance. If you stood atop a sand dune at dawn, you might picture the scene. Herds of Gallimimus sweeping across the plains, Ankylosaurus slowly grazing in the lowlands, and somewhere in the distance, a compact silhouette pausing, lowering its head to sniff the sand. It was in no hurry. It waited. Because the velociraptor knew that, in the game of survival, patience can sometimes outrun speed. Their fossils, found mainly in the Gobi Desert, tell of creatures that lived between extremes: blistering daytime heat and freezing nights, where water and food were never plentiful. They didn't just hunt, they scavenged, taking whatever they could: small reptiles, the eggs of other species, even the carcasses of abandoned dinosaurs. This adaptability, both in diet and in tactics, was the key to their long-lasting and widespread presence. Looking at the three characters of this land, Ankylosaurus, Gallimimus, and Velociraptor, we see three completely different evolutionary paths: impenetrable armor, windborne speed, and razor-sharp hunting strategy. Each was effective in its own way, a reminder that life never follows just one formula. In the age of giants, brute strength didn't always win. Adaptability often did. Perhaps, if you close your eyes, you can hear the sounds of that world. The wind sweeping across the plains, the pounding footfalls of Gallimimus, the faint clink of an ankylosaurus's tail club striking stone, and somewhere almost inaudible, the faint click of claws drawing nearer. Those gigantic arms, once finally attached to the rest of the skeleton, revealed a story completely different from what scientists had imagined for nearly half a century. They were not the weapons of a bloodthirsty killer, but rather the tools of a gentle giant, or at least a creature that did not specialize in hunting large prey. Dinoius, once shrouded in rumors and shaped in the imagination, now emerged as both familiar and strange. A massive body the size of a cargo ship, combined with a duck-like bill and forelimbs so long they could touch the ground when it lowered its head. Each arm measured over 2.4 meters in length, with three strong fingers tipped by crescent-shaped claws capable of knocking down any thicket in its way or flipping over rotting logs to find food hidden beneath. It may have used these limbs to pull algae and aquatic plants from the water, or scoop up tangles of roots, water lettuce, and moss clinging to the banks. In some ways, those arms were multi-purpose tools, like a Swiss Army knife of the dinosaur world, serving for self-defense, foraging, and even for communication or displays of strength toward others of its kind. Surprisingly, despite its enormous build, Dinoius was not a ruler by speed or precision strikes. Instead, it followed a less violent evolutionary path, living slowly and taking advantage of the rich resources of riverine environments. In the floodplains of the late Cretaceous, where fish splashed in murky waters and reeds swayed tall along the banks, Dinoius likely searched for meals as patiently as a brown bear waiting for salmon to swim upstream. The hump on its back remains a mystery that continues to divide scientists. Some believe it was a fat reserve, like that of a camel, helping it survive the dry season or periods of food scarcity. Others picture it as a biological antenna for thermoregulation, dissipating heat in sweltering weather or retaining warmth during chilly mornings. And many speculate that the hump, along with those colossal arms, served as a striking visual statement during intraspecies rivalries, a way for Dinoius to announce to the world that it was formidable, without needing to kill to prove it. Intriguingly, as more complete fossil specimens were discovered, researchers found that the species had hollow bones, much like birds and other agile theropods. This suggests that, despite its heavy appearance, Dinoius was optimized for reduced weight, perhaps moving more lightly than we might expect. If necessary, it could still take long, swift strides to evade predators or secure a better feeding spot. Its evolutionary relationship also sheds light on the diversity of theropod dinosaurs. A distant relative of swift predators like Velociraptor, Dinoius chose a different path, adapting to an omnivorous lifestyle in harmony with its surroundings rather than dominating them. Its existence proves that evolution does not always favor the strongest in terms of violence, but sometimes the smartest in exploiting less competitive ecological niches. Picture the scene. A misty dawn on an ancient floodplain. The river shimmers gold under the newborn sun. From behind a wall of reeds, a giant shape emerges, the hump curving gently along its spine, the arms dangling like twin suspension bridges above the water. It steps slowly, almost silently, then suddenly lowers its bill to scoop up a silvery fish thrashing wildly. Droplets of water spray into the air, glittering like glass in the morning light. In that moment, you see not just a dinosaur wreck, but a delicate piece of a vanished ecosystem. As the mist gradually lifts, Dinoius moves on, leaving behind only ripples fading across the river's surface. There is no rush. In its time, survival was not about raw strength, but about enduring through the Earth's harsh transformations. Today, each Dinoius fossil unearthed feels like a fragment of an ancient diary, recording the story of a creature that defied every mold we had set for dinosaurs. From being nothing more than a pair of mysterious arms that baffled scientists, it has become a symbol of the surprises and creativity of evolution. And perhaps it is precisely this, the emergence of such strange and unexpected characters, that makes the journey into prehistory so endlessly captivating. Because every time we think we've understood the past, the Earth reveals another secret. A secret that can make you, me, and anyone who loves science pause, slow their breath, and let the imagination soar as freely as a microraptor gliding through the forest canopy. As dusk fell over the coastal plains of North America, In the late Cretaceous, the sky was not solely the domain of primitive birds. High above, colossal wings sliced through the air, casting shadows that blanketed entire forests. This was the realm of the pterosaurs, the prehistoric masters of flight, and among them, Quetzalcoatlus stood as an icon of grandeur. With an estimated wingspan of 10 to 11 meters, it could rival the length of a bus. On the ground, Quetzalcoatlus stood as tall as a giraffe, its slender neck stretching upward to scan the horizon. Its long, toothless beak was perfectly suited for snapping up small prey on land or scooping fish from the water's surface. Although it was a flying creature, Quetzalcoatlus did not rely solely on its wings. On land, it walked on all fours in a distinctive gait, combining the power of its wings with the agility of its legs to move efficiently across open, dry plains. Many scientists believe this giant pterosaur was an opportunistic predator. It could soar for dozens of kilometers, surveying from above like an enormous hawk ready to swoop down upon spotting carrion, a young dinosaur, or even a turtle crawling out of a river. Its powerful wings enabled it to launch into the air from the ground with a single explosive leap, a technique known as quadrupedal launch, where all four limbs work together to generate thrust. If Quetzalcoatlus was the silent giant of the skies, then Cryodracon boreas was the northern warrior. Discovered in sediments in Canada, Cryodracon means ice dragon, a name that evokes both majesty and the colder environment it inhabited compared to its southern relatives. Though similar in size to Quetzalcoatlus, Cryodracon displayed distinct differences in the shape of its neck bones and skull structure, suggesting adaptations to its own lifestyle. It may have hunted in open, windswept areas where frigid skies and strong gusts were constant companions. These creatures lived in a world teeming with predators. On the ground, they had to be wary of theropods like Tyrannosaurus or Dakotaraptor. But the pterosaur's advantage was its ability to escape by air. With just a few seconds of preparation, it could leave danger behind. However, their massive size was also a burden. Taking off required immense energy, and any injury to a wing could mean a death sentence. The wonder lies in this. During the age when dinosaurs ruled the earth, these pterosaurs had conquered a second continent, the sky. Their skeletons were incredibly light, built from hollow bones reinforced with crosswise struts, both strong and lightweight, much like modern aerospace engineering. Their wing muscles anchored to a large keel-shaped sternum, allowing for powerful downstrokes or the ability to glide for long periods with minimal effort. One question that continues to puzzle paleontologists is how such a heavy creature, weighing hundreds of kilograms, could take off and fly for dozens of kilometers without exhausting itself. The answer may lie in their ability to exploit thermal updrafts rising from the ground, much like modern vultures and eagles. Once at altitude, their immense wings allowed them to glide for great distances while searching for food. But if you imagine them as gentle, oversized kites, you'd be mistaken. A single snap of Quetzalcoatlus's beak could be swift and forceful enough to seize a juvenile dinosaur weighing several dozen kilograms. Its long, toothless beak allowed it to swallow prey whole without tearing it apart. In riverbank regions, they might have competed with predatory dinosaurs over carcasses, using their height and wingspan to intimidate rivals. The very existence of these creatures is a testament to evolution's diversity and ingenuity. They were neither birds nor dinosaurs in the strict sense, but members of a distinct reptilian lineage that evolved an entirely different way of flying. And when the Cretaceous period came to an end, these aerial giants vanished along with most dinosaurs, leaving the skies to birds and bats. But their legacy remains etched in fossils and in human imagination. Today, as scientists reconstruct the skeletons and forms of Quetzalcoatlus and Cryodracon, we can picture the skies once darkened by their vast wings, shadows sweeping across the plains as a reminder that Earth was once home to creatures far beyond the scale of our modern world. Every fossil, every impossibly long neck bone or delicate wing fragment unearthed is a piece of that grand story. The story of the rulers of the late Cretaceous skies. And if you listen closely to the wind whistling through the grasslands or the waves breaking against cliffs, you might just imagine the echo of those colossal wings still circling somewhere above in the ancient memory of our planet. On the sun-drenched plains of the late Cretaceous, When modern grasses had yet to appear, the world was covered with chest-high ferns and the first flowering shrubs. This was the stage for performances nature had been orchestrating over millions of years of evolution, and the actors wearing massive horned crowns such as Styracosaurus or Cosmoceratops were the clearest proof that beauty and survival could go hand in hand. Imagine an early morning shrouded in mist. Sunlight slants through the steam rising from a wide river, casting golden streaks. Through that haze, an adult Styracosaurus steps out from the forest edge. The pleated frill edged with six enormous spikes catches the light, scattering rays like a prehistoric halo. These horns were not merely weapons, they were a living billboard, broadcasting messages about health, age, and rank within the herd. Cosmoceratops, with a horned crown, more elaborate than that of any other dinosaur, may have been a master of the art of display. 15 horns and spikes, each pointing in a different direction, turned its head into a mobile sculpture. Every subtle movement, every tilt of the head could send a cascade of spikes reflecting light, transmitting signals to onlookers. Perhaps in the breeding season, these displays were no less spectacular than the dances of modern birds of paradise. Yet behind that splendor lay harsh survival challenges. In the ecosystems they inhabited, massive predators such as Daspletosaurus or Albertosaurus were always lurking. When threatened, a Styracosaurus would not simply flee. It could pivot halfway around, lower its head, and charge straight at the enemy with enough force to knock over a multi-ton carnivore. Horns and spikes, designed for impressing, could still deliver a deadly counterattack when necessary. Herd life played an important role for these horned dinosaurs. Safety lay not only in sharp horns but also in numbers. A group of adult Styracosaurus surrounding their young formed a living fortress. Any predator would think twice before diving into such a moving wall of spikes. And when peace returned, the herd would travel together, their frills and horns bobbing above the vegetation like a wave of horns rolling across the plains. Their food did not run away, but it still required strategy. Beak-like mouths, as tough as steel pincers, sliced through branches and thick fern stems. Dozens of teeth lined up in the back of the jaws ground tough leaves into pulp. They fed constantly to sustain their multi-ton bodies, and their massive digestive systems allowed for fermentation and maximum extraction of energy from plants. During the rainy months, with vegetation abundant, the herd could wander across valleys, but when the dry season arrived and food grew scarce, they were forced to travel farther, sometimes crossing large rivers in search of new feeding grounds. Though today we can only guess at the true colors of these crowns, many scientists believe they might have been adorned with bright patches of skin, red, orange, or yellow, to enhance visual communication. A healthy individual with a vibrant frill and horns would not only attract mates but also send a clear message to predators. I'm strong, I'm fast, and I won't be taken down easily. When looking at fossils displayed in museums, it's hard to fully grasp their liveliness. But if you close your eyes and imagine, you might see a prehistoric savanna, hear the rustle of plants beneath heavy footsteps, and feel the rush of air as a Styracosaurus walks past. And on the horizon, somewhere, another towering figure approaches, perhaps a Cosmoceratops with its flared horned crown like a work of art, ready to enter a contest of stares and stances with a rival. The disappearance of these horned dinosaurs, along with countless other creatures, was the price the ecosystem paid during the mass extinction event 66 million years ago. But their mark remains, not only in stone, but also in the evolutionary principles they embody, that sometimes, to survive, you need more than strength. You need beauty, allure, and the ability to communicate. In their world, as in ours, survival sometimes belonged to the one who could make the strongest impression. And perhaps when we gaze at those fossilized horns, we are seeing not just the story of a single species, but of an entire era. A time when every creature carried within itself a design of exquisite craftsmanship by nature, both a weapon and a bold declaration. I once existed and I once reigned supreme. In the ancient world, not every battle was fought with fangs and blood. Many confrontations were silent performances, where the body became a stage and shape was a language. When we look at the fossils of Styrosaurus, Cosmoceratops, or the crested giants like Olorotine and Lambeosaurus, we don't just see skeletons, we are seeing messages carved into time. traces of competition, communication, and beauty. If you imagine that scene, begin on a morning at the end of the Cretaceous period. Early sunlight streamed through dense canopies, casting shimmering speckles on the ground. On the flooded plains, a herd of Ulura Titan moved slowly. The river mirrored their curved crests, creating ghostly reflections. Each individual was a living sculpture, and every step a declaration of its existence. At the edge of the herd, a young one paused. It inhaled deeply, and from its crest came a deep, resonant call, like the echo from a distant cave. The sound waves spread outward, brushing against reeds and rippling the water's surface. Not far away, another call answered, but in a higher pitch. It was a Lambiosaurus, with its axe-shaped crest producing a bright, trumpet-like note. Not quite a challenge, not quite a greeting. It was an ancient dialogue, each frequency carrying a meaning only their own kind truly understood. For them, sound was not just for hearing. It was the thread that bound the herd, the way to find one another through dense forests, or to warn of predators lying in ambush. In a world full of danger, the ability to send instant, precise information was a matter of survival. Yet these calls served another purpose: choosing a mate. Much like the complex songs of modern birds, each voice could reveal health, age, and biological compatibility. Still, the visual element could not be ignored. In the morning light, color may have played a role as important as sound. Although dinosaur skin rarely fossilizes, studies of pigment in ancient bird feathers and in the skin of some modern reptiles allow us to imagine those massive crests and frilled collars could have been covered in vivid skin, shifting hues with the breeding season. A strong male with a brilliant crest would not only impress potential mates, but also send a message to rivals: I am powerful, and I'm not afraid to show it. Elsewhere, in drier lands, herds of Cosmoceratops crossed the high ground. Their curved horns and frilled neck shields cast complex silhouettes against the sky. When two males met, they did not immediately charge. Instead, they tilted their heads, rotating their horns so sunlight glinted along every angle. Sometimes the faint clink of horn against horn could be heard, not a full-force clash, but a test, like a light fencing match between swordsmen. Remarkably, this diversity was not random. The geographic separation caused by North America's inland sea allowed each group to evolve in its own direction. In the north, Styraosaurus developed fierce, elongated spikes along its frill, while in the south, Cosmoceratops favored intricate shapes and elaborate geometry. Like two schools of art, each reflected adaptation to its environment, the social culture within the herd, and the pressure from predators. But the function of these features went beyond defense or courtship. They were maps of evolutionary history. Every curve, every scar on the bone told a story of a battle won, a breeding season survived, or a harsh migration endured. When paleontologists study these fossils, they are not merely examining anatomy. They are reading the chapters of a living novel spanning millions of years. Perhaps what makes these dinosaurs truly extraordinary is how they turned biological features into a form of art. In the modern world, we still see echoes of this principle. The brilliant feathers of a peacock, the songs of humpback whales, the elaborate dances of birds of paradise. All of it shows that in nature, beauty and survival are not separate. They sustain and enhance each other. So when you look at the fossil of an Olorotitan's crest or a Styrosaurus's horns, remember that you are looking at a tool of communication, a weapon of seduction, and a symbol of power. It is a bridge between past and present, between biology and art, between survival and self-expression. Millions of years have passed. Their calls have fallen silent. Their colors have faded. But the message remains. In any age, from the Cretaceous to today, the ability to impress and to understand one another is always the key to survival. In the ancient world, the strongest didn't always rule. Sometimes the secret to survival lay in making others simply not bother attacking you. Boreala pelta is a perfect embodiment of that philosophy. From afar, it looked like a moving wall bristling with spikes, lumbering steadily through low ferns. But the closer you came, the more you would realize its armor was not just protection, but a masterful blueprint shaped by millions of years of evolution. That armor was made of hundreds of bony plates embedded in the skin, arranged in sturdy rows along the back and flanks, like the scales of a dragon from legend. Each plate varied in shape and thickness, positioned to guard vital organs without hindering mobility. Most striking of all were the two massive shoulder spikes, long and sharp as lances, poised to impale anything foolish enough to get too close. If you were a predator like Acrocanthosaurus, a single glance would tell you this was no easy meal. Yet what made Borealopelta a true survival artist was not only its armor. Its stunningly preserved fossil revealed a surprising truth. This creature also possessed advanced camouflage. Pigment traces in its skin showed that its back was darker while its underside was lighter, a form of countershading still used today by animals like deer, sharks, and leopards to trick the light and blend seamlessly into their surroundings. You might wonder, why would a living fortress need camouflage at all? The answer is simple. Every suit of armor has a weak spot. Though heavily protected, Borealopelta was not fast, and the soft underside remained its most vulnerable area. For a large predator, a sudden flip or a well-placed side attack could prove fatal. Avoiding detection in the first place was the wisest strategy of all. Borealopelta's early Cretaceous home was a vivid tapestry of life. Dense forests of conifers, ferns, and horsetails, low-lying valleys interspersed with swamps, and, in the distance, great rivers winding their way to the sea. Here, alongside giant plant eaters like sauropods, countless predators, from mid-sized hunters to colossal killers, prowled. Each day's survival depended on countless small but crucial choices: to move or stay still, to nibble one more patch of ferns, or retreat into dense cover. As a herbivore, Borealopelta fed with the same precision it used in defense. Its strong beak-like snout could shear through tough leaves or tender stems, which were then crushed by rows of small but sturdy teeth at the back of the jaw. A large digestive tract allowed it to ferment and extract nutrients from fibrous plants that many other animals could not process. This meant it didn't need to roam far for food, minimizing the chance of dangerous encounters. The Borealopelta fossil, discovered in Alberta, Canada, tells a gripping story of its final moments. It appears this individual may have fallen into a river or been swept away by a flood, eventually drifting out to sea. When it sank to the ocean floor, sediment rich in minerals quickly covered its body, creating a time capsule that preserved skin, armor, and even remnants of its last meal. That's why today its fossil looks as if it had just stepped out of the Cretaceous. From what we know, Borealopelta was not a creature that sought battle, but it was far from defenseless. In its world, victory wasn't measured by the number of opponents defeated, but by the number of conflicts avoided. Its dual strategy, pairing formidable armor with stealth, made it one of the silent survival masters of the dinosaur age. Looking at Borealopelta, we see an evolutionary truth that still holds today. Sometimes to survive, you don't have to be the fastest, the strongest, or the fiercest. You just have to be the least appealing target. In the Cretaceous, that principle allowed a multi-ton northern shield to endure in a dangerous world. And thanks to its exquisitely preserved fossil, its story still lives on, whispering softly across millions of years to reach us here, in the present. On the prehistoric grasslands of the late Cretaceous, when giants like Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops dominated the horizon, there was a far less conspicuous but no less fascinating figure, Parksosaurus. Measuring just over 2 meters in length and as light-footed as a long-distance runner, it was living proof that survival was not reserved for the strongest, but for the fastest, the most skillful, and the most persistent. Its slender skeleton, unearthed in Canada, revealed a body built for optimal speed and agility. With long, muscular hind legs and compact three-toed feet, Parksosaurus could burst across open ground like a flash of lightning, making itself a difficult target for any predator. But speed alone did not set this dinosaur apart. A closer look at its jaws and teeth reveals that Parksosaurus was something of a gourmet in the dinosaur world. Its neat, leaf-shaped teeth could shear tender young leaves, yet were sturdy enough to process tougher vegetation, and perhaps even crack hard, energy-rich seeds that could be stored in its belly for long runs. Some hypotheses suggest it may have occasionally taken advantage of small bits of meat, such as insects or tiny carcasses, to supplement its largely plant-based diet with protein. If so, this dietary flexibility would have been a major advantage, especially in times of climate fluctuation and fierce competition, possibly marking the fine line between survival and extinction. Its large, round eyes, positioned high on either side of the head, gave Parksosaurus an almost panoramic view of its surroundings. In a world where predators could appear from any direction, whether small carnivores lurking in the undergrowth or massive predatory birds swooping from above, early detection of danger was priceless. Each time it lifted its head, those eyes weren't just searching for food, they were scanning every flicker of movement around. And when danger struck, its legs would deliver the only answer needed: run fast, run far. Fossil evidence suggests that Parksosaurus may have lived in small herds. This offered clear benefits: more eyes to keep watch, more ears to listen, and when needed, more bodies to erupt into a confusing rush that made it difficult for predators to focus on a single target. Yet even alone, it was a master survivor. By using dense riverside vegetation, it could vanish from sight in moments, as if melting into the landscape. Picture a Parksosaurus on a misty morning, dew clinging to its fine scales, steam rising from the nearby stream. It steps lightly through fern fronds, its long tail perfectly balancing as it lowers its head to nip a young shoot. Suddenly, a faint rustle from the bushes. Its head lifts, eyes wide, ears twitching. Without hesitation, the muscles in its legs coil and release, launching it forward, leaving only a cloud of dust where it once stood. In seconds, the danger is already in the past. What's remarkable is that Parksosaurus lived during a time when ecosystems were already highly diverse and competitive. It could not rely on size to intimidate, nor did it possess massive claws or blade-like teeth for defense. Its weapons were speed, vigilance, and adaptability, embodying a deep biological truth. In nature, victory does not always belong to the strongest, but to those who can make the most of their unique advantages. From an evolutionary perspective, Parksosaurus represented a small but successful branch of the ornithopods, perfectly adapted to foraging under the forest canopy and along riverbanks. Fossils indicate it occupied a fairly wide range, suggesting a tolerance for varied climates. Whether in flooded plains or on dry, rolling hills, it found ways to exploit local food sources and terrain. Such a creature may not capture the public imagination when thinking of the age of dinosaurs, but it was one of the crucial pieces that kept the ecosystem functioning smoothly. Today, Parksosaurus rarely appears in films or novels, perhaps because it lacks the grandeur or fearsome image of more famous dinosaurs. Yet its story holds a different kind of appeal, a tale of resilience, of surviving through wit and agility rather than brute force. It reminds us that in the history of life, humble creatures can be the clearest examples of adaptability, a trait that determines the fate of every species. By combining speed, wide-ranging vision, and a flexible diet, Parksosaurus wrote its own chapter in the Book of Evolution. It did not rule through fear, but by staying one step ahead of danger. In a world of giants and ruthless predators, it chose a different path: quiet, swift, and enduring. And that choice allowed it to outlast many mightier creatures, standing as a living testament to the truth that strategy and adaptability can sometimes be more powerful than sheer muscle. On the other side of Gondwana, far from the southern forests where Cryolophosaurus hunted, another land was witnessing its own daring displays of evolution. In what is now Madagascar, at the end of the Jurassic period, an unusual creature, strikingly different from the familiar predators, ruled its environment. This was Masiakasaurus, a small dinosaur only about 2 meters long, but armed with a special weapon, forward-pointing front teeth, that made it look as though it were smiling at its prey. At first glance, this smile seemed odd, almost comical, but in the harsh prehistoric world, it was a finely tuned hunting tool. The unique shape of its teeth helped Masiakasaurus grasp and hold slippery prey such as fish or small reptiles, which were abundant in Madagascar's seasonally flooded regions at the time. It was a clear example of an evolutionary rule. No matter how strange a form may seem, if it provides a survival advantage, it will be preserved and refined over millions of years. Masiakasaurus was not a solitary hunter like many larger theropods. Fossil evidence suggests they may have hunted in small groups using numbers to corner prey. When river waters receded, the leftover pools became a feast, and those toothy smiles turned deadly. Interestingly, while Cryolophosaurus had to adapt to extreme changes in daylight and polar cold, Masiakasaurus faced an almost opposite challenge: long rainy seasons, harsh dry spells, and food supply shifts tied to flood cycles. Two predators at opposite ends of the Earth, never meeting yet both embodying the same principle, adaptability, is the key. Looking deeper into this story, we find that Jurassic dinosaurs were far more than the giants often portrayed in films. In reality, their world was a diverse stage filled with survival strategies, camouflage, seasonal hunting, and physical traits that seemed illogical at first glance. Every fossil discovered is more than just a piece of bone. It is a coded story about how life experimented, failed, and succeeded. We tend to be drawn to standouts like Allosaurus or Stegosaurus, but it is the strange supporting characters like Psittacosaurus, Cryolophosaurus, or Masiakasaurus that give us the full picture of nature's boundless creativity. Bushy tails that could distract predators, curved crests reflecting polar light, or protruding teeth shaped like fishhooks, all were the result of millions of years of fine-tuning, not random whims. This reminds us that strangeness in nature often hides a deep purpose. Every trait is a solution to a specific survival problem written in the language of evolution. In this light, Psittacosaurus is no less important than any legendary dinosaur. It represents the opening chapter of a long story, before ceratopsians became the warriors with their magnificent horned frills. And Cryolophosaurus? It shows that even in a place where endless days gave way to endless nights, life still found ways to adapt. Masiakasaurus teaches us that sometimes survival does not require being the biggest or strongest, just being different in the right way. Seen together, these three species reveal a bigger truth. Evolution does not choose the perfect path from the start. It tries countless possibilities, sometimes producing shapes that to modern humans might seem illogical. But through the lens of time, we see that it is precisely this seeming illogic that drives success. So tonight, as the darkness settles and you lie in bed, imagine this. In ancient forests, under soft golden light filtering through the canopy, Psittacosaurus quietly nibbles leaves. Cryolophosaurus stands motionless in the cold mist, its crest catching faint light, and Masiakasaurus slips along a riverbank, its toothy grin flashing in the shadows. All are pieces of a greater story, the story Earth has been writing for hundreds of millions of years, a story we have only just begun to read. Amid the sun-scorched sandstone layers of the Cretaceous, in what is now the Gobi Desert, a most unusual creature lay hidden among the red dunes. It was not a colossal predator with dagger-like teeth, nor a towering leaf-eater with a neck that brushed the clouds. Instead, it was small, swift, and equipped by nature with a tool set that seemed almost eccentric, a pair of short, sturdy arms ending in a single enormous claw. This was Mononychus, the single claw, one of the most vivid examples of evolution's boundless creativity. At first glance, Mononychus resembled a modern ground-dwelling bird, a light frame, long legs, slender neck, and feathers covering its body. But its arms were the real puzzle. In most theropod dinosaurs, the forelimbs served as weapons or versatile tools to seize prey, hold it, or manipulate the environment. Mononychus was different. It had discarded all other fingers, retaining only one, crowned with a claw so robust it looked capable of boring into stone. Paleontologists believe this claw was not designed for tearing flesh, but for digging, not for its own burrows, but to break into the hidden world of social insects, termites. When faced with a fortified mound, Mononychus could deliver a powerful swipe of its forelimb to shatter the hardened outer wall, then use its long, narrow snout and flexible tongue to draw out the protein-rich feast inside. Its small, rounded teeth were perfectly suited for this menu, not for slicing meat, but for gripping soft-bodied prey. This adaptation was no random quirk. In the prehistoric Gobi, where daytime heat could scorch and nighttime cold could sting like needles, a steady food source was a rare luxury. Termites, with their resilient social structure and year-round activity, offered a near-constant energy supply. While many dinosaurs had to migrate or endure hunger in harsh seasons, Mononychus only had to locate the nearest mound. Its athlete's build also made perfect sense. Long, slender, yet powerful legs let it dash across loose sand like a streak of lightning, both to seek out termite mounds and to escape larger, faster predators. Its small, lightweight body left only shallow tracks, reducing the risk of being detected. Large eyes, proportionally big for its head, gave it a wide field of vision, allowing it to scan the horizon in an instant, a priceless advantage in open terrain. Even its feathers bore the stamp of the environment. Unlike the aerodynamic plumage of modern birds, Mononychus feathers were simple filaments, like a thermal undercoat, keeping it warm in cold nights and minimizing heat absorption by day. Its color was likely sandy or pale gray, blending seamlessly with the desert backdrop. But Mononychus is more than a story of survival. It is a page from evolution's diary, revealing a stage when birds and dinosaurs still shared many traits. Its fused wrist bones were bird-like, its keeled sternum allowed for strong chest muscles, and its feathers linked it directly to its flying relatives. Yet Mononychus did not fly. It stands as proof that not all bird-like features were built for flight. Some were repurposed for entirely different survival strategies. If you imagine the ancient Gobi as an ecological battlefield, Mononychus was a stealth commando, small, hard to spot, swift, and striking at the weak points of the system. It needed no overwhelming strength or giant size. Precision, speed, and specialization were enough to carry it through millions of years of evolution. And perhaps that is what makes Mononychus so captivating. In an age we often picture as dominated by giants, it reminds us that evolution does not only forge titans, it also shapes masters of efficiency, creatures so perfectly tuned to a single role that they become almost irreplaceable. Today, when we see a jungle fowl scratching for termites or a woodpecker patiently chiseling into bark, we are witnessing echoes of strategies Mononychus perfected over 70 million years ago. Though its fossils are silent, the shape and structure of its body still tell a story. The story of evolution's daring, where the less traveled path sometimes leads to the most brilliant success. When the first light of dawn spills over the Gobi's sand dunes, the ancient world seems to still echo with the sounds of life. The hiss of wind through low shrubs, the rustle of early morning insects, and somewhere the hoarse call of a flightless bird. But among these sounds are also light, quick footsteps, leaving slender traces in the sand. They are the sign of a creature whose image had been misunderstood for decades. Oviraptor, no longer the imagined egg thief of past misconceptions, but now recognized as a symbol of care and sophisticated survival strategies in a harsh environment. The image of an adult lying with its wings draped over a clutch of eggs not only softens the hearts of observers, but also opens a deeper window into how evolution could foster complex behaviors in creatures long extinct. Oviraptor was not merely feathered, it had plumage arranged in a way that formed an insulating layer, maintaining a stable temperature for its eggs while also acting as a shield against dust and predators. This was no accident. It was the product of millions of years of natural selection, in which only those that combined physical strength with the instinct to protect the next generation left their mark in the fossil record. The body of Oviraptor was lightweight, with hollow bones and flexible forelimbs, all enabling swift and agile movements. Although it had the build of a small predator, its diet extended far beyond hunting. Its strong, curved beak was not only suited for cracking seeds or hard shells, but also for peeling bark to find insects or foraging for wild fruits. This shows that Oviraptor was not just a simple link in the food chain, but a versatile generalist, able to exploit a variety of resources, a survival strategy that likely helped it endure climatic shifts and environmental changes. Yet its habitat was never stable. The Gobi Desert of that era was a land of stark contrasts. Seasonal rivers and lush patches of greenery at one moment, then desiccated, wind-scoured wastelands at another. In such conditions, nesting in open ground was a risky gamble. A single sudden sandstorm could bury an entire clutch. That's why Oviraptor's brooding posture, body covering the ring of eggs, wings spread wide, head lowered, was not just an act of protection, but also an optimized stance to shield against sudden environmental threats. Interestingly, fossilized nests reveal that Oviraptor's eggs were often arranged in a circle, with the pointed ends facing inward toward the center. This was no trivial detail. It reflected a deliberate strategy to optimize incubation. Such an arrangement would help distribute body heat evenly, giving all eggs an equal chance of developing. This care evokes parallels with how many modern birds organize their nests, hinting at a behavioral link stretching back tens of millions of years. The evidence for brooding and parental care has completely transformed the public image of Oviraptor. No longer seen as a sneaky thief, It is now recognized as a key player in the evolutionary journey from dinosaurs to birds. Many researchers even describe Oviraptor as a rough draft for modern birds, possessing agility, insulating feathers, and strong nesting instincts. This also raises a larger question. How many other dinosaurs have been misunderstood simply because they were fossilized in a misleading moment? Oviraptor is a reminder that science does not stand still. Conclusions can change when new evidence emerges. Each layer of sand unearthed, each bone recovered, can overturn old stories and rewrite history. In the unforgiving Gobi, where sandstorms and predators were ever present, the existence of a dinosaur devoted to raising its young was extraordinary. It shows that evolution does not reward only the strongest or fastest, but also those that protect, persevere, and invest in the future. Among all the evolutionary legacies Oviraptor left behind, the image of a small yet steadfast body shielding the next generation stands as the clearest testament to a sustainable survival strategy. Today, when Oviraptor skeletons are displayed in museums, visitors no longer see merely a predator with a sharp beak. They see a multifaceted creature, hunter, forager, and devoted parent. And within that image lies a quiet but profound lesson. True strength sometimes lies not in claws or muscle, but in the ability to preserve and pass on life. At dawn in the Gobi Desert, the pale light seemed filtered through a fine veil of dust, falling across the rippling mounds of sand. In the midst of this seemingly harsh and silent expanse, a small creature remained steadfast in its mission. It was neither hunting nor moving to find shade. Instead, its body lay covering a ring of eggs, wings spread wide to form an arched shield of protection. This was Oviraptor, once misunderstood as an egg thief, but now known as one of the most devoted parents of the Cretaceous period. The feathers of Oviraptor were not merely evolutionary relics on the path toward modern birds. They served as insulation to preserve warmth, as a barrier against drifting sand, and as shade from the scorching sun that could kill the fragile embryos. Fossils reveal their brooding posture. Head held low, wings evenly spread, body pressed close to the clutch. It formed a living circle, each breath from the adult transferring warmth to the next generation. An oviraptor's nest had a distinctive structure. Eggs often arranged in a double ring, their pointed ends facing inward and the broader ends outward. This arrangement kept the most fragile part of each egg away from the adult's weight while optimizing heat transfer. Fossil evidence shows a single nest could hold up to 20 eggs, possibly incubated in staggered batches to ensure that hatchlings did not have to compete too fiercely at birth. The name oviraptor was once tied to the image of an opportunistic predator stealing the eggs of others, yet new evidence from Mongolian fossils has overturned that belief. Being found buried in a brooding position suggests they died right at their nests, perhaps due to sudden sandstorms or seasonal floods. Their deaths were not the result of raiding, but of protecting unhatched young. The Gobi during the late Cretaceous was a harsh land, but not an empty wasteland. Between stretches of sand and dry soil were sparse patches of vegetation, low shrubs, and seasonal rivers. Oviraptors made use of it all. They ate small animals such as lizards and insects, as well as plants and hard seeds. Their toothless beaks were strong enough to crack seed shells and deft enough to tear soft flesh from prey. This omnivorous diet was a clever survival strategy, helping them endure times of scarcity. Yet perhaps what made Oviraptor most remarkable was not how it fed, but how it invested in the next generation. In a world where life was fragile against the forces of nature and predators, behaviors like brooding eggs, guarding the nest, and maintaining stable temperatures offered a significant evolutionary advantage. It was also a behavioral bridge between dinosaurs and birds, proof that parental care was not the sole domain of species alive today. Now, in museum fossil halls, one can easily find depictions of Oviraptor with wings outstretched, encircling its eggs like a living shield. No longer a shadowy thief in the night, it is seen as a small but resilient creature, willing to face sandstorms and hunger just to ensure life would go on. Perhaps that is its true legacy, a lesson in the power of protection and patience amid the relentless cycle of evolution.